Thank you so much. It's a real honor to be here. So listen, here's a light, fun topic to explore for a Friday afternoon. As a species, I believe the human race is in danger of killing its own freedom. Dr. Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist and survivor of the Holocaust, said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. But in our response lies our growth and our freedom." But if we're not even conscious of why we do the things we do and how to control them for the better, are we really, truly free? The seeming lack of conscious awareness of why we behave, how we do, and of the gap, the void, the space between stimulus and our response is having an adverse effect on the choices we make. And that makes me genuinely concerned for the future generations of humanity. Now, at one end of the spectrum, someone cuts us up on the way to work while we're driving. We let it rile us and work us up. We feel the stress and the agitation. And ultimately, our mood impacts our behavior, often for the rest of the day, which in turn affects the consequences of how we choose to behave and our immediate future. But it's not all about us, though, is it? Something my wife tells me daily. In our response to the stimuli we're faced with, it affects those around us too. It has an impact on other people's behaviour. And that's a real issue because we tend to adopt the most common emotion which surrounds us. We've all experienced that Monday morning moment in the staff room or gathered around the water cooler looking at pictures of Julie's new puppy. "Oh, look, Julie, isn't he lovely? Look at his little nose and his cute flappy ears. Oh." In walks Sharon like a clap of thunder with a face like a bulldog chewing a wasp. She's had a terrible weekend. Her husband's run off with a postman. Her daughter's pregnant with her 14th child. Her son's been smacked off his face all weekend. What does everybody else do? She's slamming drawers and throwing things around. What does everyone else do? Put the pictures of the puppy away. Whoosh. Because we adopt the most common emotion which surrounds us. Now, throughout the years, many social psychology experiments have demonstrated that we are influenced by the behaviour of others. An authoritative figure dressed in a white lab coat can make us respond to their request without question, for example. And we're more likely to go along with the actions of groups of people, even if we don't wholly agree with their actions, which is exactly why riots are so unpredictable. But every day, we find ourselves responding to technological stimuli without spending time in that space before our response, without considering the consequences. Emails are sent on the spur of the moment, opinions are announced on Twitter, and love is won and lost with a flick of the finger on Tinder. And yet, we do have a choice as to our responses. But some are seemingly not able to make considered, well-placed choices as instantly as technology is encouraging us to. Our pace of life is increasing at an alarming rate, exacerbated by technological advances, and our ability to access multiple stimuli at any one time is greater than ever before. Now, while it's a complicated area, the overall consensus globally is that the diagnosis and treatment of attention deficit disorders and mental health disorders has been on the increase since the late 90s. You see, understanding behaviour is as simple, pretty much as easy, as A, B, C. The B stands for behaviour. That's the action. The child that draws on the wall, the colleague who hands in their work late, or the dog who leaves a little present in your shoe. And behaviours have a consequence. That's the C. Very broadly speaking, we punish the behaviours we want to see less of, and we reinforce or reward the behaviours we want to see more of. However, the critical part of this A, B, C structure is the A, which stands for antecedent, which essentially means the thing that happens before. That is to say that every behaviour has a cause. the stimulus, the trigger, the antecedent. Being aware of why we do the things we do is crucial to choosing better responses. Now, if we were to all spend a little bit more time in the space between stimulus and our response in order to make more conscious decisions and choices, it could result in behavior which helps us to achieve more positive consequences. The alternative is that we stop making conscious decisions, measured choices, and controlled consequences. Every day, whether we like it or not, many of our responses are unconsidered, automatic even. Yet despite this, we all like to think that we're in full control of our behaviour, don't we? The idea that other people are controlling the decisions we make doesn't sit very well with us. Automatic behaviour, though, can sometimes be a good thing. For example, if every time we were driving in the car and changed the gear, if we had to think every time, life would certainly be much more stressful. But it's not only technology that's eroding our ability to be in control of our behaviour, it certainly is encouraging it. And if that continues, we could well be heading towards an increase in mental health and behaviour issues. Now, just when you thought it couldn't get any more gloomy, there exist some more unlikely sources of people who manipulate our behaviour. At one end of the scale are retail marketers, those people whose life motto is eye level is buy level, and who work their marketing magic on us when we visit the local supermarket for a loaf of bread, but leave with a 60-inch TV, a chainsaw, and $300 worth of food. Now, you might, for example, have noticed how the layout of your supermarkets often changes. By changing the placement of goods, it forces us to pay more attention to what we're doing, and in the process, probably buy things we didn't even notice before. At the other end of the scale is something a little more sinister, though. Profiles exist based on the websites we visit, the cars we buy, and the newspapers we read, so that organizations can influence our behavior and our responses in their favor. It doesn't actually take much to get us to respond without thinking. Consider the warning buzzer when you don't have your seatbelt on in the car. Irritating, intrusive. But that one invention has saved countless lives because our behavior can be so easily influenced. So could we reach the point where we stop thinking for ourselves? Of course we could! We already have! Every time we shop, every time we read a newspaper, and when we listen to our election candidates speak. So what can we do about it to not only prevent the erosion of our freedom, but to harness the understanding for our own benefit? Well, I've been thinking about this for some time. So, by the end of this talk, you will have the information you need to greatly influence your future. I'll be honest, I was expecting a thank you. Here are 3 simple ways that we can spend more time in that space before our response to help us to flip the switch on our behavior. Number 1, challenge the status quo. One of my pet hates in life, along with kinks in hose pipes and wire coat hangers, are people who have opinions about things they know nothing about. And aren't they everywhere? My neighbour once told me confidently that the temperature inside your mouth is 85 degrees Celsius because she read it on Facebook. Everyone here, stick out your index finger. Come on, put it in your mouth. Is it burning? No. Well, that's cleared that up then. Don't just accept things the way they are. Ask more questions. We owe that much to ourselves as well as future generations. Number 2, 2 questions which will put us more in control of our responses and indeed of our freedom are, why do we do it this way? And then, how can we make it better? Number 3, find the gap. Simply pausing before we respond offers us an opportunity to consider the best response, taking its consequence into consideration and literally changing the future. The most appropriate response is often not the first one we consider. If we remain less aware of the consequences of the decisions we make and less conscious of our responses, ladies and gentlemen, we are killing our freedom. Our freedom to think, our freedom to choose, and ultimately, our freedom to be able to flip the switch and actively change our behaviour for the better. Thank you very much.